Of a seat at the table. I am your host, Tigner, and I have with me my co-host, Mr. Kevin Hooks. We have a great conversation set up for us today. We have the topic of voting. Voting is taking front and center precedence across the country today. In Georgia, we've seen long lines of people voting, early voting. We also, people are doing early ballots, mail-in ballots. So today's special guest we have joining us today is Democratic candidate for South Florida, which is an area that it's a tension area. So there's a lot going on in South Florida right now where votes are needed from all persuasions. We have candidate Pam Keith joining us at a seat at the table. Welcome to the seat at the table, Ms. Keith.
Thank you. Please call me Pam, and it's a delight for me to be with you both, and it's a delight to be speaking about this issue that means so much to me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. What made you decide to put your hat into the ring to run for office?
Have you ever heard of that saying, "To whom much is given, much is required"?
Oh yes.
So that is my testimony. That is my story. I have two things that are emblematic of my life. Number one, God made me a fighter. I am pugilistic by nature. I love to argue. I love to mix it up. I love to be someone's champion. I have been that way since I was itty bitty. I am not risk averse. I'm a person who is very risk tolerant, and I'm a person who enjoys confrontation. So that is my personality, and that is my personality type. And I stumble in some way accidentally, but I think it's by divine direction, into being a lawyer, because that's what lawyers do. They are hired guns. They are champions for others. And I started out my career in the United States Navy, and I defended a lot of our sailors and Marines that got themselves into trouble. I call them wayward and misunderstood, but mostly they had issues, and I helped them resolve their issues, and I was their champion. And I found a very strong personal purpose in being the person who makes the case for others. And then, I had a whole mountain of law school debt, and I went into big old white shoe law firms, those ones that represent the biggest corporations in America. I proved that I could compete and think and write and debate and negotiate and become expert in an area of the law. And I did that. And for many years, I represented corporations. I was brought to Florida to be in-house for one of our biggest producers of clean and renewable energy in the country. But then you had another one of those moments where you have, spent all these years trying to prove yourself. Can I make law review? Can I pass the bar? Can I do this? Can I do that? And you prove to yourself, oh, okay, I can do that. And then you ask yourself, well, yeah, but now what? Exactly. Like I can, and what's next? And when I stopped being satisfied with the bonus or the accolades, and it was like, okay, so what am I supposed to be doing with myself again? And then it just kind of hit me like, I'm supposed to be advocating for my people. That's what I'm supposed to do. And once I had that road to Damascus moment, like that, oh, okay, all of this experience and this passion and this fire and this confidence that you have, you need to be putting it to making people's lives better. That's what you need to be doing. And so once I kind of decided that's what I was going to do, it was like, once again, no risk aversion here, just dive right in. I was like, okay, I'm going to run for U.S. Senate. And
awesome.
And I did that. I mean, of course, I had no idea how to do that, but I'm intrepid. I Googled it. And so I just decided that was what I was going to do. And a lot of people took great offense at the idea that, a Black woman would just jump into a U.S. Senate race. And I was like, look, I don't think anybody owns Senate seats. Anybody can throw their hat in the ring. And I want you to understand that I think I belong there, whether you do or not. Right? And I'm going to make my case over and over again until you get used to it. Until you stop thinking that it's weird for a Black woman to run for Senate when you would not think that it was weird for somebody else to run for Senate with half as much behind them as I have behind me. So I'm going to just go ahead and make my case. And if I don't win, so what? Keep on fighting. And so I continue to do that. And I ran for the seat in 2018. And again, got a lot closer, got a lot more votes. But, sometimes you just, politics is not all policy. A lot of it is patronage and power. And so you got to figure out how to play those X's and O's. And I get better at that. But I just feel like it is my calling and my purpose and my ministry to champion others and to put on the table the kind of solutions that we actually want to see. I mean, it's a great benefit for me that I have a law degree. I understand how the law works. I have experience with workplace law. That is my expertise. I've lived all over the world. My father was a foreign service officer, so I was born overseas and lived all over the world. And I have a military component and understand a lot that's going on with our veterans. Like everything I've done in my life checks the boxes of what's going on right now in America. And so I think, yeah, maybe God wanted me here.
Hey, exactly. So do you think that your tenure as being in the Navy as a JAG, what part of the JAG Corps, will that be one of your platforms as being working for the vets?
Absolutely. A lot of the problems that we see in our veterans are just the continuations of problems that started while they were on active duty. And rather than actually fix those problems and treat those problems, they kick them out and say, hey, civilian world, you go deal with this. And so I know a lot about the kind of stresses that are put on our service members and their families when they are deployed. And you know what I'm sick of is I am sick of always having the budget to send people on expeditionary warfare whenever we feel like it, and then never having the money to take care of them when they come back because they're budgeted completely differently. DOD and military operations is budgeted one way, and then VA is under domestic discretionary spending, so it's subject to sequester and all this other crap, right? Like, so for me, I think that's crazy. And so one of my personal things that I've run on, and I have been running on for a long time, is to move the VA out of domestic spending and putting it over on DOD, so that anytime you are funding expeditionary warfare, you are concomitantly funding the VA at a same level so that it always stays on parity. So every time you're increasing troop levels, you're also increasing VA budget. So you have to keep fighting about it. That's something that I'm absolutely—
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
Solutions oriented kind of girl.
Yeah, because there is some disparities when we send our men and women over to fight, they come back with PTSD and every other type of
thing. And then they got to spend years trying to prove their claim and years to prove the degree of disability. And all of that is about warped values. You know, caring for our warriors is an inherent part of the cost of war. And if we treat it that way, we're going to quit having all these problems with funding of VA. And there are other issues that I have about how we deal with the isolating factor of military service and PTSD and how we address that. Like, another idea that I have is that I think all of America, everywhere in America, you should have what I call a Veterans Firehouse. A Veterans Firehouse is a facility that's open 24/7, 365. It is staffed only with veterans for veterans. And at any time, day or night, a veteran can come in, get a hot meal, play a game of pool, watch a football game, and have a conversation with someone who gets them and understands them. And the VAs, you know, we have these like VFWs or whatever, but they don't really serve a more modern force. I want something that's modern, that's comfortable, that's non-clinical, that's about peer-to-peer engagement, but provides all those services that a veteran might need and yet not be comfortable to seek, but for in an environment where it's already there and everybody's making you feel welcome and comfortable to access that. If we do that, we're going to cut way down on PTSD, but more important, on veteran suicide and homelessness. Those are the things that I really want to address, and we're not addressing it now. So why don't we try something else? You're muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that, Kevin.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. You know, we're really fighting, and we're seeing this large increase in early voter turnout. Mm-hmm. And I still hear these rumblings on all little social networks, and hip hop world especially. Mm-hmm. People don't think their vote's going to count. Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I know just how few votes there were that separated victory from loss in the last presidential election.
Ain't that the truth?
I'd love to hear you talk about the importance of every person voting.
Well, I want to take it back from voting to start with just the basic concept, which is power. Mm-hmm. Power, okay? And power, in a way, is like Instagram, right? Like, if you have power and you don't use it, then you ain't powerful, because power is only visible in the act of using it. If I have power in my pocket and nobody knows, does it matter? Right. If I have an Instagram and I don't post anything, anybody paying attention to my Instagram? No. Right. The power you have magnifies and grows like a muscle the more you use it. The more you use your voice, the more you use your presence, the more you use your energy, the more people pay attention to you. And it continues to grow in that way. A dear friend of mine is a guy named Desmond Meade. I don't know if you know Desmond, but Desmond is a guy who was responsible for getting felons' voting rights restored in the state of Florida. I met Desmond way back in 2014 or 2015, right? When he first started trying to do this. And he was just a brother with a record trying to get something done. And what I admire about him more than anything else is he had nothing backing him up when he started. Not one thing. He had nobody, nothing. Nobody believed it was possible to pass that because it's so expensive to pass referendums in Florida. And you know what that brother did? He just started doing stuff, showing up places and saying, we need to do this, and going to churches and saying, we need to do this. And then the next thing you know, more and more people said, yeah, why are we doing this? And then all of a sudden he had a posse, and then he had a crew, and then he had a team, and then he had the whole state working with him. And the next thing you know, we passed this thing. Now, yes, it gets stymied by the Republicans, but this brother now is a mover and a shaker in electoral issues. Why? Because he used his power. The vote is your power. That is point number one.
Yes.
The last thing you ever do is give someone else your power, especially someone who is prone to want to use that against you to harm you, your community, your future, your stability, and your opportunities. So when you do not vote, it's not like the decisions won't be made. They just won't be made to your advantage. They will be made.
Yeah.
Right? What you're saying is, I don't care if you make decisions that hurt me.
Right.
Yeah.
Pourquoi? Because you think that there's going to be no difference between A and B. Well, A can suck and B can suck worse. But the worst thing is that when you give over your power to someone else, it could be Q. It could be T. Like, it could be so much worse. So what I tell people is the first thing you do is you don't ever hand your power to someone else, right?
Yeah.
Second thing you do is use the power that you've got. And the third thing you do is do it loudly, vociferously, so that everybody can see. And pretty soon other people will be sharing their power with you. And pretty soon, the next thing you know, you are the Mac Daddy and the Daddy Mac at the same time.
I love your definition, how you just broke that down. Let's talk about power. Power comes in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You use the word power, but I like when you talked about the brother Desmond. Sometimes it's just a thought and an idea.
Mm-hmm. Power is very simple. It's a very simple
Yeah,
the concept of power is I get people to do what I want them to do.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. That's all power is the ability to get people to do what you want them to do. Now you can pay them to do it. That is a form of power. You can threaten them to do it. Coercive. That is a form of power. But you can also inspire them to do it. Right?
That becomes a form of leadership, a form of a different.
Right. Was Martin Luther King powerful?
Yes.
Was he rich?
No.
But he was powerful. Why? Because he could inspire people and to think in a different way and to behave in a different way. And that is power. So power, Desmond Meade may not be rich, but that dude is powerful. And the thing that I love about our community as African Americans is we can be so powerful by merely being influential. And that's free. That's amazing.
Right now, voting is something, it's very crucial. Mm-hmm. There are millions of people who, I think they mentioned they broke it down, I heard, across in Georgia at the last election, that over 3 million people did not vote. Mm-hmm. These were registered voters.
Yeah.
So those numbers can vary from across the country in major pockets, mm-hmm. Florida, mm-hmm. DC, California. What do you say to individuals, male, especially men, because men are the ones who's hardest to get out?
Yeah.
What can we say right now to get brothers to get out to vote?
Well,
registered voters. Right. There's nothing, no hindrance. They're already registered. They're not felons. Right. It's just here it is. Yeah.
You know, I don't know that I have a monolithic answer to that, but I will tell you what I've run across. Right. I've run across the people who don't want to vote because they don't want to participate in the system. It's like an act of rejection or otherizing of themselves. I'm going to exist outside of this whatever stuff is going on here. But hopefully this coronavirus has made clear that there's no such thing as existing outside of the other stuff around here, because it's going to come get you one way or another. So I'm hoping that that maybe has been mitigated. But I know that there are a lot of people that I've run across who don't vote because they don't see that there's any material change in their existence from the electoral process. And that is because they live so much on the margin. They live so differently than what they see on TV or on commercials or even political ads. They're like, my life does not reflect it in anything I see. You know, here I am, I see all these ads for Capital One Bank and you know, Starbucks and this, that, other thing, and that's just not my life. My banking is the check cashing joint on the corner, and I live in a pure cash world, and I pay exorbitant fees just to access my own paychecks. I'm the guy that you know, lives, my food source is the corner store, and most of that is, you know, chips and bad food that I can't even cook, and I have to cross my fingers that my vehicle can get me where I need to go. I have to stand in line for buses all day, and this society doesn't see me. They don't vote because they don't care. They don't vote because they think we don't care. That's why. It's because they don't see anyone who sees them. And I think that's the great failure of our politics, is that in being hyper obsessed with fundraising and being hyper obsessed with the clubs and the caucuses and the political machinery and the endorsements, that we lose sight of regular, poor, struggling, everyday people. We forget, we ignore, we bypass that constant struggle. And it's such an affront in my mind to live amongst such wealth and such stability when your own life is such a struggle. And the message that's sent by society to you functionally is that you're not worthy of the kind of life that you see this person and that person and the other person having, and you can't even access it. You can't even see how you get there. And so I think that we have a tendency in politics to blame the non-voter. And I think that I would like to encourage the non-voter, right? Like, rather than blame them, I would just say, look, you may not ever be able to vote for Pam Keith, right? But just know that every night I'm thinking about you. Every night I am thinking about you. I'm thinking about the bus route. I'm thinking about the food stamps. I'm thinking about how you're getting your kids into new shoes when you have no idea how you're going to pay for it. I'm thinking about how you want to make sure your kid shows up to school with a clean clothes and a nice little outfit to make them feel good about themselves, and you just don't know how you're going to get it done. I'm thinking about you. So you may not vote for me, right? That's okay. I'm still here for you. And there are more of us that really will be thinking about you than ever before. So if there was ever a time to help us get across the line, it's right now. Because the opposite is also true. I'm not the only one thinking about you. There are folks thinking about you who cannot think, who are up at night trying to figure out how to contain you, how to keep you down, how to make sure the system stays working against you. And those people are on the ballot too. It's your choice which side goes in. And if you have the opportunity to cast a ballot, why the Sam Hill would you cast a ballot for someone whose intention is to make sure that you are always treated as a tenant in this country and not as an owner of the rights and privileges of the Constitution?
Wow.
It's powerful. I feel like
Wow.
you can drop the mic, and you know it's really important. I feel your passion. The part that feels like you come from that, you come from that world, and I certainly do. You know, so I can relate to it. I understand what it's like, you know, to give forward a 10% of your paycheck just to get in cash at a grocery store. I know what that's like. Also,
I do too, right? I do too.
What it's
It may
like.
not have been my whole life, but it was enough of my life
Enough, yeah.
for me to absorb that.
And that's the point I want to make. And I remember when I did it, it wasn't that like, that's just what you did. But as I started to move up the ladder and got educated and started seeing what and that's other people we need to talk to. There's a group of us that have ascended beyond that. And through this process, we're looking at 30 to 40 million people getting ready to be evicted from their homes.
Yes.
We're looking at
Right.
1 in 4 renters have missed a rent payment. One
Right.
out of 5 people have missed a mortgage payment.
Exactly.
Like, those are facts that we're dealing with. And a lot of that comes from the people who understand what we understand, but now find themselves in that space. And yet they still remember the part of them that said, my vote doesn't count. And
Right.
those are the people we also need to talk to. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Right. And that's just it. I mean, sometimes you feel like everything is going along swimmingly until it's not, right? You know, everything's fine until you get that diagnosis, right?
Mhm.
Everything's cool until, you know, grandmama has that stroke.
Right.
And then the whole family falls apart, right? So life throws us a bunch of curveballs, you know, and boy, has coronavirus been a curveball. But the good news is that, you know, there are other economic curveballs that have so impacted the Black community that some of the wealthier communities weren't impacted. This one's impacting our body, right?
Yeah.
So there's a unique opportunity here because it's very difficult to make big systemic change when everybody's comfortable.
Mhm.
But now you have this entire society that's uncomfortable and destabilized. And so now is an opportunity because you have this configuration of things. You have, on the one hand, the economic crisis driven by coronavirus. And on the other hand, you have the reality of Black Lives Matter movement saying, hey, we're about to do some things here because we're no longer going to move forward in these paradigms. Well, that's a beautiful space in which to have someone at the table who is like, yo, I understand where these two things meet. We're going to make big change. I'm going to make it so that we're equitable. So when we make these big changes to address housing, to address clean energy, to address healthcare and all these things, we're going to do it in a way that honors and is socially just to everybody, right? Because I'm thinking about that. And that's an amazing opportunity. And that's why I'm so grateful to be in this time and in this moment. I'd much rather be in this fight on the sidelines. Remember, I'm a fighter. I did
that. So how does it feel? Like, you know, we have very few women in the Senate, Black women in the Senate. Mm-hmm. We have very few African-American women that head of Fortune 500 corporations. Mm-hmm. And yet, whenever there's a challenge in our community or even in the greater society, it always seems to be Black women who have to step to the forefront to solve the problems. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we do that, you know, we really, you know, send that message enough. You know, now with Kamala being, you know, in the position she is, and of course, all of the AKAs and every other.
I got to give out a shout out to my sorors. I'm sorry. I'm point of personal privilege to all my Alpha Kappa Alpha women. Thank you so much, sorors. Thank you, soror Kamala. We're about to put you in the White House. I just have to say that.
That's why I was going that way. I could sense it. You know, us noobs understand those things.
I love my noobs too. I do. I love my Kappa Alpha Simon. I love my Qs. You know, I mean, I grew up Greek. What can I say? I mean, you know, my dad's an Alpha too. So I love it all. Divine Nine.
Yo, I didn't know.
Oh, man. Oh.
You didn't know. How did you not know?
We talk about everything, but
you've been so busy trying to solve the world's problems. Right.
Yeah, exactly. How could you possibly know?
Oh.
I feel like I ooze AKA-ishness.
You did. I knew if I said it and I was right, you was gonna come to the front with it.
You hooked that fish. Easy.
So let me ask you, and I'm gonna digress. But when Kamala was being interviewed on 60 Minutes, and Howard, and she mentioned AKAs, I lost it.
You know what's so funny is that the Divine Nine, the Black Greek organizations, are such a unique component of American fabric that I actually got asked to be interviewed by a French newspaper to explain what it was and what did it mean and what was the impact of that, because they had no idea. They had no idea how to contextualize that. And it was cool. It was super cool. I really, really enjoyed that interview to try to help explain the role of these organizations in our history and our cultural fabric and what it means to be a part of this. And so it was really cool to be able to explain to that from someone whose perspective is just, you know, completely.
All right. I love it. Go ahead.
I want to ask you, that was a great segue. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Pam. AKAs are near and dear to me, and my mother she's over the Ivy Wall now, but she was a golden girl, so I grew up as a honey on the honeydew. Right. So I do understand, but I have to ask this question to you: as a Black woman, what do you consider your superpowers to be?
Oh, I can explain this real easy.
Oh, okay,
But it's going to take a little bit of explain for you to get this.
okay.
So let me tell you how this goes. There are three kinds of confidence. Confidence number one is the confidence you get from the love of your family, your parents, people telling you you're good and you're worthy. And most of us get that from our aunties and our uncles. They give us a big hug, right? All of that affection. That is the first kind of confidence you get. And it's really more significant in its absence than its presence. You will know it will mess you up if you don't get it as a child. But if you do, you'll just be basically stable. Confidence number two is the confidence of competition, where you go to school and you get an A, you win the race, you compete and you get the job, you get the promotion. Something validates that you're good at what you do. You study, you put in your work, you get the result. Hey, look, I got an A on the test. And in that, we know that if you are constantly succeeding, you start to feel good about yourself. And if you're getting D's and F's, you start to feel really badly about yourself, right? You know, it's like, oh, I guess I suck at this, right? So that's a different kind of confidence. But there's a third kind of confidence. And that third confidence is the confidence of survival. Third kind of confidence is when you walk through this gauntlet of something breaking you down intentionally, targeted at you. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a bad health diagnosis that you have to survive. Maybe it's a bankruptcy. Maybe it's getting fired from a job you knew you were doing well and something happened that was just totally sideways. But the experience of Black women in America is that there's always a component of survival mixed in with that component of competition. Because there's always an element that's always telling you you're not good enough. And that element, no matter how well you are succeeding, it is also telling you that you're not worthy and you're not good enough and you have to prove more. And it becomes this weight on you until you get to a point where you are such like a phoenix that just sheds all of this negativity. And then the next thing you know, you walk with this confidence and knows I have dealt with more people who've told me I ain't nothing. Not worthy, shouldn't be there. And even though I was succeeding, I was doing the work, I was getting it done. I've been through more chapters that have put me down and made me feel not beautiful and not wanted and not needed. And I've gotten on the other side of that. And so I know the depths of what is down here. I know of what I'm made of. And when I do, I walk through this world with a different swagger, a different kind of confidence. I know I could take whatever's coming at me and do 10 times more. I've got it all inside of me. I know it. And that, my friends, is Black girl magic.
I feel like that's 100% true.
Oh yeah, I like how you broke that down. Yeah, you dissected it very well.
I could have heard that sounded like my mama, my auntie, my cousin, my sister. That sounded like everyone, every Black woman that you know who persevered to go through whatever the struggle was, they were able to overcome.
Right. And that's not just great competition. It's that element that says, hey, you can't, and you do, and then you start to feel yourself. And that confidence that you have, that swagger that you have, is the thing that says, okay, I'm going to boldly take on this project. I'm going to boldly step into this gap. I'm going to boldly stand for my community. I'm going to become that minister. I'm going to go get that PhD. I'm going to go fix that medical thing. I'm going to start that thing, because that you now have that additional component that makes you believe in yourself, even when what is around you does not. And that's and the thing is that when you have that, then you start to think about how you can uplift others, right? Because now you're good. Like, I'm good. I know who I am. Let me help some of these youngsters here. Let me help some of these brothers here. Let me help reach out to some others. Let me tell them how much I love them. Because when you get into real good Black girl magic, you just exude energy and love and confidence to others. You have confidence to spare and to share, and people gravitate towards that. And so when you ask, why are Black women always at the center of that? I mean, ask, why would it be Ayanna Pressley? Because she all of that. Why would it be Kamala Harris? Because she all of that. Why would it be Lauren Underwood? Because she all of that. Right? And that's what you see. And you see that is a spirit, a loving spirit. It's not a hateful or vengeful spirit. It's a loving spirit, but it's an unshakable confidence that comes from survival.
Wow. What key skill sets or qualities make you a unique Black female leader?
Each one of us is unique, all of us that are in this battle. bring a totally different ethos to the table. I was on a panel on MSNBC with Jonathan Capehart. It was like Desiree Timms and Pat Timmons Goodson and me and Dia, and like every one of us, we look different, we sound different, we have different backstories, and all of us are badasses. It was so much fun. I think you asked what my unique, makes me different. Like I said, I like to fight. I love it, and I am also super creative when it comes to problems, and I go big. I think of big solutions, and so I am a policy wonk by trade. I mean, I love digging into legislation, and I love to dig in. Like I'm very cerebral that way, but I also have this real passion and this real fire that comes across, and I'm a super straight shooter. And I know I'm constantly getting chastised for, oh, you were too strident about this, or you were too aggressive about that. I'm like, whatever. I just feel like people are looking for a leader that's a straight shooter, that's uplifting and positive, and has real solutions. And I think that's what I bring to the table.
Outstanding.
So do a policy walk.
Yeah.
That means the details matter.
Absolutely.
I'm in fintech, so as Chief Community Officer at a company called Acorns, we really focus on the up and coming. We also focus on the details.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, talk a little bit about how politics is local and how down ballot issues are really also motivating reasons why people should get out and vote.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because most people don't really see. Here's the funny thing. Like in school, we teach like, oh, in 1876 we did blah blah blah, right? But we don't teach like, okay, so who makes the decision on where your garbage, how often your garbage is picked? Every city in America has a Black neighborhood, and virtually in every city in America, the Black neighborhood is under resourced, it is dilapidated, has less transportation, less infrastructure, less nice schools, whatever. How does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody know? Anybody know how that happens? That happens because of decisions that are made, some at the municipal level, some at the county level, some at the state level, and some at the federal level. But they all seem to work together to create the situation that is ubiquitous across the country. Now, if you and I are of a mood to change all of that, then we need to know what level we are talking about and why, right? And so do the voters. They need to know, if you feel like your kid's school is not getting the resources to look brand new like the school over there, then why? Mm-hmm. Who are you going to ask? Are you going to ask the county commissioner? You're going to ask the Department of Ed for your state? Right? Are you the PTA? Are you the school board? Who the school board maybe in your state really controls curriculum, but doesn't control the actual money for buildings. Maybe those are two different budgets. Do you know which is which? Right? And those are things that you need to educate yourself about, right? Because if you are an educated voter, you are an empowered voter. But if you're mad at Barack Obama because we did not fix the, lack of jobs in Cincinnati for Black men, I'm like, that wasn't his ministry, right? You had state and local officials that could have made sure that the federal dollars that came to Cincinnati for refurbishment actually were funneled into your community.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right?
That's very true. Because plus, with that being said, we never ask for anything either. So you cannot expect President Obama. I mean, yes, I was frustrated, but once again, I had to stop and ask the question. We never ask him. LGBTQ asked for something. The Hispanic asked for something. The Asian asked for something. And each one of them got something. Right. We did not ask one thing. We just thought the great Black hope was going to give it to us because the brother was sitting in the White House.
Yeah, I want to say something that's totally controversial, and I fully expect that people are going to blow me up for this. But I'm actually a fan of Ice Cube's. I don't have a problem with Ice Cube. But Ice Cube said something that I have to set the record straight. Yes. Ice Cube said, we are giving you our vote, so you tell us what you're going to do for us. And I was asking myself, now hold up. Sir, you are asking the wrong question.
Right.
The question of what you're going to do for us is always going to be answered with, well, what do you want us to do? Right?
And if you don't have an answer.
I don't want our community, I want any community to ever go to a member of Congress or to Senate and say, well, what are you going to do for the Black community? Or what are you going to do for the LGBTQ community? Or what are you going to do for young women? Just say, start thinking like a lobbyist, because that's not the way lobbyists approach members of Congress. They don't say, well, what are you going to do for the steel industry?
They
Right?
tell you.
What they
They
do
tell.
is say, here's a piece of legislation that the steel industry just wrote. You're going to do this if you want our support.
Right.
So where's our legislation that we've whipped in for our community, and where is it, and where's our agreement on it, and what does it say? And it needs to be specific. We want numbers, we want details. We write it in pieces and say, hey, member of Congress, looks like you need our votes. Here's the piece of legislation we expect you to vote for.
Got a question for you. You're familiar with Congressman Al Green's his voice of he wanting to pass the reconciliation bill.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? Would that be a good example of how we can get behind to set the tone
There are many,
for the
yes,
for the ask?
right. We need to, yes. And to answer your question, yes. I haven't read that particular one, so I'm not gonna say, oh, I
understand
with all of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the process is this. Let us write down what we want. I took the liberty of writing down a platform that I think is applicable to the entire community and says, we want the following things. We want this for HBCUs. We want this for jobs development. We want this for research and healthcare. We want this for infrastructure. This is what we want. Now, if we can get agreement on that, we can take it over to Congress and say, hey, this is what we want. Now, are we going to get everything we want? No. But are we going to get some of it? Probably, because we've now had a common ask. And I'm not just saying for the African-American community. If you are a person who is really fired up about the environment, let's stop saying that climate change is an existential threat. Yes, it is. That we need to have bold policy to address climate change. Yes, we do. How about you write it down and say, here's the bold. That's why I like the Green New Deal. That's why I support it. I support it because it's a set of principles on a piece of paper that says this is what we want. Now, are we going to get everything in there? No. But we are fighting for the things in there. And maybe we get some of that because we're fighting for it. But how are you going to get that which you're not even fighting for? You're not.
Well,
right? We're not fighting for an ask. We're fighting for conceptually, you're going to help us out. That's not a thing.
so before we're out of time, how can we find you? Where can we donate to your campaign?
Yeah.
Love it.
Because I'm sure you got a lot of new fans.
I hope so. Everybody can. So first of all, I want you to know that there are many ways that you can contribute, and they're not all financial, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have the money to contribute, obviously go to Pam Keith FL. That's PAMKEITH. The letters FL for Florida, FL Frank Larry. PamKeithFL.com. That is my website, PamKeithFL.com. And that's also all of my social media handles. So if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that other stuff, PamKeithFL. But if you have time to give, we need people to make calls. We need people to text a voter. We have people that are doing postcards and letters. If you're in Florida and you can take off a day or two to help drive people to the polls, please be willing to do that. And coronavirus people are not all that comfortable getting in an Uber or whatever. So if you have, you know that you've been tested and you're kosher and you can help drive people to the polls, please sign up to do that. We need all hands on deck. We need everybody at the till on this one. Our ancestors came through way too much to get us here, for us to cede that sacrifice and go backwards. We simply cannot do that. And, every time I get frustrated with the process of politics, which is not infrequently, mind you, I remind myself of three women. I remind myself of Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. I remind myself of Shirley Chisholm. And then I also remind myself of my grandma. It wasn't that long ago that she couldn't go to college. Mm-hmm. She couldn't have a job at being made. And today, I'm this close to being a member of the United States Congress. And that's because of the sacrifices of the people that came before me. So I'll be damned if I'm not going to do as much as they did to ensure that you and your children and your children's children have that going forward. Wow. And even more.
Wow.
And for everybody who's listening, who's watching, paying attention, it's very easy to get to it took me 30 seconds to make a quick donation. So everybody please join in. Follow the leader. I like to lead the way. So if I'm willing to write a check, break bread, it's because it's important. So everybody join the party.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. If there are young people of color out there, all I got to say to you is, you are magic. And you don't need to be anything other than what you are to be a leader. Your flavor, your way, your style, your ideas are exactly what we need. So if you don't see somebody you want to vote for, that's God telling you that you need to run.
That's right.
Because maybe somebody's looking for you to be the person that they want to vote for. So, I encourage you in everything that you do. I'm proud of you. I love you. I want nothing but greater success for you all. And I'm in this fight for you. So I could not be more grateful for that opportunity.
Thank you. Once again, we're talking to Pam Keith, who's running for the U.S. House of Florida. Is that District 18?
Yes.
That is South Florida. So what that encompasses which parts of South Florida?
It's all of St. Lucie County, so Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie, all of Martin County, and the northern part of Palm Beach County, so parts of West Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens, and inland it goes to Indiantown and Pahokee, and so it's the northernmost part of what we still consider South Florida. It's not Miami-Dade, it's not Fort Lauderdale, but it has a significant African American population in the St. Lucie County area, and it's a very unique district. Is not principally African American, but I'm making the case day in and day out. I'm a representative for everyone. It's not just my community, but don't expect me to ignore my community either. That's not gonna happen either. So, speaking the truth. So, I'm delighted to be with y'all and enjoy the conversation so much. And I'm so grateful for what you all are doing, because that is in fact leadership. It is very much leadership. So thank you.
We thank you very much for your time coming on the seat of the table. Once again, Ms. Pam Keith, and if you could give your handles one more time before we go.
My website is Pam Keith FL, Pam Keith FL, Keith like Keith Sweat. I know that's an old reference, but Keith like Keith Sweat. PamKeithFL.com. That is my website, my social media. Check me out on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and everywhere else.
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you all tuning in to a seat at the table.
Let me do it. My best Munson.
Yeah.
Remember, you don't have to be in the streets, but you must be in the struggle. Thank you.
Outstanding. You did a great job. We have to vote, ladies and gentlemen. We have to vote.
Absolutely. Don't give your power to nobody.
Don't give no power away.
Let's
not give it away. Let's use it, because this is. And as Pam said, this vote is not just for the presidency, but you need to also look at it all the way down the ballot for your local, state, municipalities, all the way up to the federal, because at some point it's going to touch you one way or the other.
Right.
Thank you very much, Pam, for coming on the seat at the table.
Thank you so much.
And in closing, God is so in love with you. He's ready to wrap his loving arms around you. All you got to do is say yes. Until next time. Thank you.